Hey everyone, welcome to yet another video on ATAK. This time we're going to be sending some data over HF radio. So let's get to the setup here. So we've got, first of all, a phone, an Android phone running ATAK. We've got an HF radio. This is an FT897D, and it is hooked up to an antenna. Oh, big antenna, tall antenna. There we go. It's about 20 feet tall. So the fiberglass mast will collapse down, and then these guy wires are the actual antenna legs, so it's an inverted V. Tuned to 20 meters, 40 meters, and 80 meters, theoretically at least. I don't have the equipment to actually measure it, but working pretty well so far. Radio is powered by those two batteries there, and is hooked up to the laptop. So we've got a USB sound card, and then that is a serial cable that allows the radio to be controlled by the software. We're going to be using JS8 call as well as a Node-RED flow, and I will do some screen recording to kind of walk through that a little bit more in detail. That thing you can kind of ignore. I needed a USB splitter, and I had hacked that one into a powered USB hub. Anyway, yeah. And then that thing will be the subject of a whole nother video, but that is basically a Wi-Fi access point / Arden node, and it's got a built-in GPS, so it will natively broadcast COT messages. In fact, you can see right there, radio 2, that's that guy. So this phone and this laptop are hooked up to the same Wi-Fi. As long as these devices are on the same LAN, they will communicate, and this should work, including, I haven't tried it yet, but I believe we've got everything set up so it will work over Arden as well. Okay, we should be pretty much all set up here. So the way this works, the BobTAK plugin. So you open that up, you set up, okay, so this laptop here is a GPS built in, and it's broadcasting its position as a COT. So we pick that, and then we pick the radio transmitter icon, and then it sets the call sign of the system, basically, that's going to accept our message. I'm going to send a chat message. So hello from California. So this is going to be going to Justin AI 5HC in Texas, which is around 1,400 miles away. So we'll hit send, and what we'll see is in JS8 call. There we go. So it has essentially added on some extra info, so 3 being the type of message, a chat, the call sign, and then the actual text of the message itself. And on the other end, it's going to come into his JS8 call. It's going to get sent over to a Node-RED flow, which is going to process that and then send it out as a multicast message to ATAK, where it will pop up on his device. Okay, there we go. AI5HC +3. It's pretty strong. So again, this is from about 1,400 miles away. So BobTAK. There we go, the name of the plugin. And that's configurable in the plugin itself. So you can set up different groups. There we go. Justin says, hi from Texas. We just got that chat room. There we go. Now we'll get him to send a map marker to us. And map is a little bit of a mess. Sorry, I've got the fire spotter satellite loaded. Okay, here we go. So his message is coming through. Yeah, 5HC, that's him right there. Okay, and then we've got BobTAK, again the configurable group call sign. So all you would do is in the Node-RED flow, and I'll go into a little more detail on that, but you would just add an additional one if you wanted to have your own. But it will default to BobTAK, both in the app, in the plugin, sorry, and in Node-RED. So you're sending type 1 is a position. Frogs, okay. 928E4 is the UID, so that means I added a truncated UID so that you can move things and resend them and it will update the positions. FG is the type, and then EM12HR, that's all the Maidenhead grid. So, come over to here. I suspect... Oh. There we go. Frogs. That's it. And you can see it's author is BobTAK, and all of this other stuff is kind of cut out. The location area, location error, is kind of an important thing to remember here. So it's Maidenhead grid, and there is a little bit of a rounding error. It's about 30 or 40 feet or so, and I've done that to save a significant amount on the transmit time. It will transmit that series of letters and numbers much faster than a latitude longitude. Got the frogs. Thanks for the demo. Justin wanted to try sending a turbo mode. So let's see. Here we go, trying turbo. So that one sent pretty quick. That was a very brief period of time. Yep, trying turbo. He's gonna send a cot next. Okay, there it is. The green, oh, come on. Oh, it lags so much. There we go. Baffin. I don't know how it decided to pull in a CHP incident from that, but... Okay, I'm gonna... Let's see. There it is. Let's do that one. That's what sends it. There we go. So while that transmits, we'll just talk a little bit about the plugin. So the way it works is in Node-RED you configure the Node-RED flow essentially to have a call sign. It doesn't have to be your amateur radio call sign, as you can see. I'm KJ6YOA, and we've configured it here to be looking for HF radio. So that is literally the call sign for what you want to call this, independent of your actual amateur radio call sign. I've got it set up so that, again, this is broadcasting its map coordinates from its built-in GPS as a cursor on target, and that will be included in the flow that comes out. Or technically it'll be a separate flow that goes alongside. But you can, if you don't have that, then all you have to do is drop a map marker on the map and give it the correct call sign that you've configured, and then you can share that with other people on the same local network, and then they would be able to utilize that as well. IP address is here so that you could manually punch in an IP address. So this, if you don't have anything here, it works over multicast, so it will just go to anything on the LAN. Oh, I think I ran out of batteries. Okay, so IP address, if it's blank, it will multicast over the local network. These radios will support that. Arden will not. So if you know what the IP address is for your machine that's running the HF radio, then you can punch in the IP address right there, and instead of doing a multicast, it will send it as a directed message. You could also edit, so say you had a radio, say this was configured, for example, to be called frogs. So if you send a message to frogs, it would go to that. You could also go down here in the remarks field, type in an IP address. If you set that as your radio transmitter, oh, hammer's going. If you set that as a radio transmitter, then it will automatically pull in the IP address from the remarks. The remarks can have nothing but the IP address when you do that, but that's how that would work. And then the JS8 call group is by default BobTAK, but you can specify a different group, and then when it sends the messages, instead of sending BobTAK, it will send whatever you have typed in right there. And then the global chat message, so it doesn't tie in with the standard chat messages. It's not really a good way to pull those in, so we've added in a global chat message box right here. You just type it, hit send, and it will go. Now, the idea behind this, kind of the concept, is that this radio would be somewhere on a local network, and that would be tied in, and then you would have multiple of those out in the field, and this could hop back through those radios to get to this and send the message out. So Arden should work properly, as well as these, hopefully coming out a little bit later. And that way you don't have to actually lug that around. You can have that at a fixed position, the command post, or maybe a vehicle or something, and send data extreme distances. So I'll go into the screen capture and kind of talk about the Node-RED flow a little bit, see how that works. Oh yeah, so one other thing I forgot to mention. So in addition to allowing you to, send and receive messages through ATAK, through the plugin, JS8 call also has a built-in heartbeat and grid reporting type of thing. And so it will also, the Node-RED flow, it will pull in all of those, convert them to GPS coordinates, convert them to COTs, and then send them out. So you can actually, this will be coming in a future thing, but JS8 call will allow you to relay stations using other stations. So, for example, we were talking to Justin here. Say, for example, we couldn't actually reach him, but we could reach that one. We can see on the map, okay, well, that's roughly between us. So we could then configure our radio to send to that one and tell that one to relay our message to Justin. So that is a pretty handy thing. I don't I don't think there's really anything like that built into JS8 call, at least not a map for visualizing where these things are. So even if you are simply using it to help with relaying for JS8 call, I think this is a super handy feature. And you can also see just how far some of these things can travel. I mean, Florida to California, that's pretty good. In this part of the video, we're going to go over BobTAK and BobTAK GPSD. These are the flows for Node-RED. So I'll start off by saying, if you are going to be using this for amateur radio use, not necessarily for transmitting anything for ATAK, if you just want to map out what's being received, you don't really need to configure anything on this Node-RED flow. The only thing that you'll need to do, and this applies to if you're going to send anything as well, you'll go to JS8 call, settings, reporting, and you're going to need to check this box here to allow things to be set and enable the UDP server API and accept UDP requests. That's going to switch on all of the API stuff for JS8 call and allow it to communicate with Node-RED here. If you are going to use it for actually sending things, then we'll run through what needs to be configured. I'll just do that real quickly. It's very easy. In the BobTAK flow, or I'll start by saying BobTAK GPSD is totally optional. It would be useful if you have a GPS dongle or a built-in GPS or whatever. It allows the device running Node-RED and JS8 call to essentially like automatically broadcast out its coordinates. It'll put a map marker on ATAK, and then you can select it as a transmitter from the radial menu. So it's very handy. If you don't have that, if you don't have a GPS, you don't need this one at all. In fact, I would say don't load that one. Just load BobTAK. So in BobTAK, what you'll need to configure for either way, with or without GPS. So over here, if you scroll to the right, you go to set global my call sign. And it is required that you at least know what this is. You don't necessarily have to change it, but you have to know what it is set to. And if you do change it, you have to know what you change it to. So HF radio 1 is the default. You can switch it to whatever you'd like. You just have to know what it is, because in BobTAK, when you open up the plugin pane on the right side, you'll have to either manually type in HF radio 1, or you can create a map marker, drop it somewhere, set the map marker name equal to whatever you type here, and then from the radial menu, set that as the BobTAK transmitter. Or again, if you've got a GPS, then that will get sent out automatically. So that's the call sign. The other thing that you don't have to set up, but probably would be interested if you're going to use custom groups, if you're going to use the JS8 call group feature in the plugin, you would add those here. So on the very left side below the giant API type thing, there's the JS8 call group node. And so we'll go ahead and open that up. And there we can see here the default is BobTAK. So it works by default if you don't change anything and don't change your JS8 call group. But if you want to use a custom one, you just use the add button right here, and you type the name of whatever group you want to use. So there we go. So that would add the crack group. So at this point, if you were to use the JS8 call groups, type in @crack, then this would function. If you're to type in something that is not one of these two, then it will get ignored. And then after that, it puts that second dot. You just connect that dot right to there, and then you deploy. Your thing is all set up. So that's it for the mandatory configuration on the BobTAK page. On GPSD, there is no mandatory configuration. However, when you first import it, this will give you an error. It will say that it doesn't know what this node is. You have to manually import the GPSD node because it does not come with Node-RED. To do that, it's very easy. You go to the menu, Manage Palette, install, and then in search modules you just type in GPSD, and right here Node-RED contrib GPSD, there's an install button. Mine says installed because it's already installed, but you would just click that and that's it. And this would be fully functional. It then at that point would transmit one message every 60 seconds to the local network with the essentially the position of this machine. So that is it for all of the setup. It's pretty straightforward. Really, the only thing that you have to change or have to be aware of is the call sign, and the other stuff is more or less optional. So now I'll go into a bit about the flow, how it works. And if you have problems, you can also watch this first part, because I'm going to talk about these debug things here. So this top row is just kind of like a bit of a testing and debug type of deal. It will help you determine whether or not there's a communication occurring between Node-RED and JS8 call. So if you click on either of these, it will send a test message to JS8 call. So open that up. So in the window here, you can see this has to be blank. You can't have anything pre-typed in here. So type your outgoing message here is blank. When we click on this, it will fill that out with a test PLI message. And there we go. So that is an example of what would get transmitted if you were to actually use BobTAK to transmit something for real. Get rid of that. And then this is a test GeoChat message. And there we go. That's what, oh, okay, I'll fix that. I should only have BobTAK once. I think I might have changed something right before this. Anyway, that'll be fixed by the time you see this video. The other debug thing is right here, connected. So if you see a blue dot there, it means that this Node-RED flow is receiving ping messages from JS8 call. So if you receive the ping messages and you get the blue dot, but those don't work, then that means that JS8 call is able to communicate with Node-RED, but not the other way around. And you have to work out why that would be. And then the final debug thing would be if you were to connect this dot here to that one there, it functions in what I'd refer to as a loopback mode. And and then you deploy. There we go. So now it would function in a sort of a loopback mode. So if you were to actually send something in BobTAK with the plugin, it'll go through the chain. It'll end up here. The radial will try to send it out, but it will also treat that message in the text box here. It treats that as if you had received it, and so it goes through the receive chain as well, and will then get multicast out back to your device. So you will essentially see what you just transmitted on your device as if it were on the receiving end. And so you can essentially test out the receive chain in that manner. I would recommend not having it enabled though, because it will clutter up your map pretty quickly. Okay, and now as far as how BobTAK actually works, it's listening on this multicast group and that port for multicast messages. Additionally, it's listening on port 42068 for UDP messages sent directly to this machine's IP address. And after it receives something, it comes in as an XML. It gets marked as that. For multicast messages, it's going to check the transmitter call sign. So whatever you've set up here is compared to the message that's received. If they don't match, it gets ignored. If they do match, if it was meant for this device, then it will go forward, and then it's determined if it's a GeoChat or a PLI message, and then some processing happens. GeoChat messages are a lot simpler, so it pretty much just goes straight out. Otherwise, it determines what type of PLI it is. So currently we have 2525C implemented, we have spot map markers, and we have self-reported positions. And then those go over here to a bunch more processing. Eventually it makes the PLI message, and then it jumps right back into here, and then it gets sent out to JSA call. This is where the port is set for JSA call, and then this value comes from, I'll talk about it in a second, but from somewhere else, because JSA call actually expects messages sent on a different port than where it is sending its messages from, which is kind of strange. And then this block here, these are some more debug things, but it's more of something that I was testing for possible future use, where it might be, it's very likely possible to control many aspects of JS8 call itself from the plugin. And so you can, if you make sure that this is enabled here, you can click on some of these just to get an idea of what data. So like, for example, mode get speed, if we click on that, message goes out, JS8 call responds with this, and our mode.speed is set to 1, which I think corresponds to normal. If you change it to fast or turbo or slow, then you'd see a different number there. So just more debug stuff. And then on the receiving end, we are listening on UDP port 2242. Again, that's the default for JS8 call. It will tell us when it sends us a message what port it's expecting our outgoing messages to be sent to. So that just captures that. Everything comes in as a JSON, so it gets formatted in that manner. And then over here, again, here's our debug. So essentially everything is going out to this this debug menu. So if JS8 call receives it, you'll see it here, with the exception of pings, because those are really annoying. So that just filters those pings out. If you want to see the pings, you can connect that little dot there to the debug, and then you'll see those, but it clutters that up really quickly, so I filter them all out. API type, this filter is based on what type of info we're getting from JS8 call, and most of these are, again, just sort of testing and stuff that I was messing around with, but the relevant ones here are topic spot. So this is, there we go, that fourth one down. This is where all of the messages, all of the heartbeat messages, the built-in stuff from JS8 call goes. And so it will essentially a bunch of formatting stuff. Then it converts the maidenhead to lat long. Then it builds a caught message from that and sends it out. There we go, as a multicast to everything on the local network. And then the BobTAK related stuff goes down here, change rules. Again, it goes to this group where it's going to filter those so that only things for a certain group make it through. And then there's some formatting stuff here. It's essentially just removing all of the leading call sign information and giving just the text, just the message itself. And then here we have some logic to determine what type of message was being sent. And the purpose of this really is to minimize the amount of data that's sent. So we're not having to send a bunch of XML or whatever. We're just the absolute minimum type of data, and then we rebuild it into a full cursor on target message. So 2525C, spot map markers are supported. GeoChat comes down here, and eventually all of these end up at one of those symbols, and then they get multicast out here. So either a chat message or an SA PLI message, and that covers it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure it's really, really long at this point. I apologize for that. But I wanted to try and be fairly thorough and explain everything. So again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find this plugin and this Node-RED flow useful. Have a great day.